This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on! Game on!
We are back with a special edition of the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Podcast, episode 98. Actually recording this on a Tuesday night because for Wade and I, it was an exciting day. The St. Louis Blues dropped a tweaked logo. I'm not saying it's a new logo because they tweaked it. New jerseys, new style. So we're going to get in that in just a minute. And we welcome Paul here as well because I wanted an outsider's opinion of. You are one of the other big members of the podcast, but I did want you on just to get your opinion because you are an outsider and a non-Blues. I want to say not a Blues fan. You do not follow the Blues like we do. As always, I do have my drink. Did make it special for tonight. It is Blue Note Jukebox Bourbon. So. Sound like I've had some already. Just so excited about that. But I figured it was a good fit for tonight with talking about the St. Louis Blues and their new design. So cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It is a very good whiskey, by the way. I highly recommend it. Speaking of that, as always, we cannot forget our friend Mitch with the Drink Your Face Off line of barware and clothing. So getting right into this, I'm actually just going to share, to make it really easy, share the St. Louis Blues webpage where they put all this info out, and we'll kind of scroll through it. Easier to share that than all the different photos that have been clipped in that. So this is when you go into their page, their details on it, they call it Remixed, Remastered, Reborn. They put a really cool video out with Colton Parayko. They talk about the teasing of the note, the history, all the stuff that's behind it. And they first get into the history of the Blue Note. For anybody who has not seen it, they do have a nice layout. And they put a bunch of teaser videos out ahead of time showing the past Blue Notes. The modern iteration that we had, Wade, correctly if I'm wrong, is the original version that came out and teased as a third for 98-99 season and then was fully adopted in 99-2000. And that main note is pretty much what they've run with, and it's actually right here too. I guess I should have read further down. 1998 to 2025. That's a long time.
Yes,
but that is a classic, sharp-looking piece. The note just before that was on the clown jersey styles, which you have seen come back with the retro stuff that the NHL and the St. Louis Blues have done. So we have seen that rounded note. But then what they launched today is a combination, and we were looking at this before, and Paul was trying to grasp kind of where that came from, as this remixed, remastered, reborn comes from a tweak of the 67 to 1984 version. But they adjusted the colors a tad. They changed the border, which used to be white. Now in the new one, it is blue. The lines of the note itself are much thicker. But overall, I like it because it's subtle and I don't find it as too much. But just on that alone, actually, Paul, we'll start with you first. What do you think of that change?
Honestly, if you put the jersey out and showed it to me, I probably would not have noticed a difference without comparing it to an older jersey. So it's very much in line with what they have been doing for the last 5 decades or whatever. But I've always liked their logo. It's sharp. It looks good. The big change with this one, it seems to be, a lighter shade of blue. And it seems like the outline gold or whatever, yellow, whatever it is just ever so slightly different. And it's weird comparing the new note to that heritage note on the former third jerseys, because I think that the image they have there is the colors are different than the old heritage note.
And
But
I believe they actually may have tweaked those a bit. Plus, the bordering for everything is a much thicker line too, so that that yellow or the sorry, the gold, it is not yellow. The gold pops there.
yes. Yeah, it's well, we know it's not maize, so
No, right.
yes.
Yes, you would be the expert in that field for sure.
Yes, it's definitely not. I do like what you have pointed out. The thicker lines really does look nice, and that's you know, like I said, if you put the jersey in front of me without another Blues jersey and just like gave it to me, and it's just like, oh, it's cool looking. But I if you didn't tell me it was a different design, it would take me a while to notice, which I
And
guess is a good thing and a bad thing.
sure, and I will say, looking on non-blues related sites, who had shared this stuff, kind of looking at their comments, that wasn't a low amount of words commented. A lot of people said that exact same thing: is what changed, or what, this doesn't look much different. And I'm okay with that, because the other changes that they made, and we'll get into that here in a minute, I think helps offset some of that. Wade,
Yes,
what do you think on the Blue Note change?
I liked it. I mean, I think I love the simple design of the new note. I think they did a really good job of taking something and bringing it back to maybe a classic form. I think the screen that's up right now shows the new note and the heritage note. I think they did a good job of making it where it's going to have a pretty understated look. It's definitely cleaned up. It's nice. The note itself, what they did to the note, I really love. I feel like they were, you can look at it. You just kind of showed it in a nutshell. Obviously, in the 80s and into the 90s, there was two changes, but this is a franchise that realistically ran with two notes, two primary logos for the entire run of the franchise. Beyond your original six teams, that hasn't happened in the NHL. It doesn't happen very often, right? So I think when you think of a original expansion team and the tradition that the Blues have always kept in their jerseys, obviously you look at the 84 to 89, that's the RNS years, kind of a weird transition time for the franchise. The retro note is kind of perfect for what the 80s and into the 90s was. And then we went back to something that really blended those two notes into the original note and the color way that worked. So, I mean, I think they did a really good job. My hat's off to them for the note part of it, for sure.
And a couple things that I said, before we got on the recording, I actually listened to the interview ESPN 101 out of St. Louis had today. And actually, if you want to hear some of that, they do have the Last Minute Blues podcast put this out as well. They interviewed two of the people from the St. Louis Blues that worked on this design. They started in actually early talks in 2017, right after the Winter Classic. And they get into some things. They talk about the design and the surveys, and they talk to alumni and all this stuff. But one of the things that they mentioned, and Paul, you'll be clued in on this, or I think it'll grab your attention a little bit too, is when the previous Blue Note, the 1998 version, was designed, things weren't digital. Now things are digital, so they wanted to remix or tweak that Blue Note to have it show more boldly in digital formats, look cleaner on the retail items, the hats and things like that. So it's interesting from a technology perspective too, is another reason that they felt doing tweaks like this would be so good. And if you look closely, for those who got one or have seen pictures of them, is the Winter Classic jerseys worn from this year have that almost exact style Blue Note on the shoulder. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a little bit of a tease that some of us kind of picked up and going, wait a minute, why is this a little bit different? But I thought they made good changes, but they didn't go over the top, which again, with a classic team like St. Louis, like you said, they say the next six, you don't want to go too much.
They definitely changed. They kind of gave it away a little bit with the they gave the STL away too, the new STL design. They
Yes.
gave us some teasers, which I think was fun. And I think both of you and I will laugh about the fact that some of our friends that work in the organization were very sly about this because we asked a lot
Yeah.
of questions for quite a
We
while.
of course we're going to. And
So my shout out to those guys for good poker faces.
yep.
And I'm going to say here, nothing was given away to us.
No.
Anybody who listens to the show knows that we had a lot of speculation, but I do want to just kind of protect the integrity of the fact that no one gave us any inside scoop on this.
And again, if they would have shared stuff and said, "Hey, you are not to talk about this," like I said, I've been 6+ years in actual media and interviews and things like that. Hidden sources, all that are always protected. Stuff is not shared when it should not be. So yes, getting into the uniforms now. As you mentioned too, and I'll see if I can blow these up a little bit because they're a little hard to see just because of how the Blues put them on the page. I can't zoom in easily. Let me see.
I think it's good the way it is because you can see all three of them. I mean, it's a. I think that screen works.
So with they are actually, and I'll start with the third jersey first. And that was because it was talked about, I guess, even when Fanatics was first announced, and either one of you two jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember through aesthetics and other media sources that there was always planned the second year for multiple teams to have or tweak third jerseys. It wasn't really said, at least to my understanding, there would be a big redo of jerseys in general. But
No.
we knew a third jersey could be tweaked to something else. Of course, we'd had the Heritage for a while. We'd had the 90s a little bit. But in the Blues case this year, they are going to be using their current, as of this past season's, home jerseys as their third. Previously, they were using the Heritage jerseys. They wore those on Saturday night games. And then, of course, the regular Navy for their other home games. But now that will be their Saturday night special, whatever they do with it. But that will actually be their third, which I thought was kind of an interesting decision. But it is still a classic look.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, I mean, here when I'm looking at, I mean, if you play devil's advocate again and you look at the business end of it, they had just designed that jersey and gotten it into Fanatics' hands last year, right?
Yes.
So that jersey is still only a year old, and you have to wonder if production wise and team store wise and everything else, they had to say, hey, we've got to do something that's going to make sense. If we're going to do two new ones, let's kind of dummy this thing down into the third. It's still a great looking jersey. So, I mean, it's going to work. I would love to see them, and here it's going to become a classic. And I would like to see them use it for, a year or two, and then who knows. But I think that material wise and branding wise, and probably what they have already produced, it only made sense to keep one of the two around, well, the white or the blue.
And we'll see if they do some of the tweaks, and we'll get into some of the little additions they did to jersey if it shows up on that one. But the home and away uniforms, and the other decision they made for the aways is with the Winter Classic styles they wore last year and previously were a cream color. These will now be white.
Yeah.
And I think that actually causes it to pop more. And I think I really like it that way. The striping is plain's not the right word, is simple.
Yeah.
And I think that adds a nice touch. The one, and we'll get to the pants here, and the pants and socks. The pants will have the STL, the note that the Blues wore on the helmets during the Winter Classic, which I am glad they brought that back in some capacity. I almost thought they might throw that on a shoulder.
I did too.
But the pants are okay. Maybe they just felt like they didn't want to go over the top on the jerseys, and that's good. I may try to reach out to the design team and ask them, see if they'll actually answer some of the questions. But they added that, and then the socks are the same style. The white ones, anyway, are the same style as the ones worn in Winter Classic, as far as I can tell. I guess I need to compare with mine. The Blues have, of course, because it's navy, otherwise a little extra stripe. The other big thing, and then Paul, I'll come to you and Wade both on thoughts on the overall jersey setup. The other thing that changed, and that is upsetting some people. These are they're numbers, but they're single layer.
Single play, yeah, one ply.
They are yellow for the homes and blues for the away. I don't quite know what to think about that. I think it kind of fits into the being a little plainer and not being too much, and kind of that let's go old school and be more.
Which is funny because the Blues, this will be the first time the Blues have ever had a jersey that was a single layer plied applique. Going all the way back to the 67, 68s, they always had multiple layered jersey numbers. I guess I'll jump in on it. To me, that was the only real disappointment in it. And I had a solution, and I've had so many calls and messages and everything all day.
Imagine that.
Yeah, no. My reply to it is pretty simple. I understand the simplicity factor of it. I think what I would have liked to seen them do, like on the blue jersey, I would have liked to have seen them do a 2-layer jersey number with the bottom layer being the same color as the jersey, and then having the yellow on top, which I think would have given it a layered look, which would have also given it some depth. I think they could have done the exact same thing on the white jersey and done a white base with the blue letters and numbers, or at least the numbers, to give it some depth, which I think would have helped add to that 3D aspect that they're trying to do on the logos with all the teams. So without making it where it was really a 2-color or it had a bunch of whatever, I think that would have added some depth to it, and I think that would have helped make them look more finished. The good part is, and I've said this today to a bunch of people, the one thing that's really easy for teams to change on a jersey is the lettering and numbering. So realistically, it's not hard to think that maybe once they got these into a season that they wouldn't change it. I think it was Philly, and there's plenty of people that are watching the show that will probably correct me on this, but I think Philly did that, and then they changed something, and then I think they've changed numbers on jerseys that they continue to use the same jersey and change numbers on. So that is definitely something that could happen. I really like the jerseys a lot. That's my only real critique, thing I feel like they missed.
And again, I'll like I said, I'll try to reach out through the Blues media people and see. But looking at the third jersey, that has the regular numbering that we're used to on it. So that also at least keeps that around too. Assuming that this is posted as it should be, that's all staying for that third style. So, Paul, what do you think about these overall since we've broken them down?
I actually didn't even notice that it was the single color numbering and the A, and I'm guessing the C, until you mentioned it. So I really like the look of just the simplicity of it. It does look good. And my cynical self will say it's going to save strippers and people who customize jerseys a little bit of time.
You're right. That does fit into that. But you said a bad word there. How many do you guys know? I should have looked at before I got on the podcast tonight with you. Do you know how many other teams have a single layer number?
I want to say that Buffalo. I think Philly has some jerseys that are single layered. And I think Buffalo might. I think Buffalo does too, or they did on a couple of their Winter Classic style ones.
Is Detroit a single, or they have? Okay, I thought theirs was the one that came to mind, but I was trying to think if there was anybody else.
I can't recall. Yeah,
I'll have to see if I can dig through and bring it up to answer on Thursday if I can remember, but. I didn't think there was many, but yeah, I guess once we see it, and as we scroll down through here a little bit too, you can see some of the home where they break down. One of the things they added, and they actually did this on the Winter Classic on the inside hem, it says St. Louis Blues on the lower back hem. That's kind of a nice little touch. So they started that with that piece there. They show the NHL shield up close, but I'm trying to understand what's changed with that because nothing's sticking out to me. Am I missing something with that? Or is it just that they put that picture in? It doesn't look as holographic, but it may be how they took the picture. One of the things that we noticed last... I'm sorry, go ahead, Wade.
Sorry, to clarify, it looks like the Flyers for one of their outdoor games used a single one, and I think their sleeve numbers on one of their jerseys is a single. The back numbers before the peanut gallery gets me later. I think those are still two color. But I was just trying to, we're on the fly trying to remember this stuff.
And if there's if teams of whoever that knows those, shoot those in. I will mention those on Thursday. Like I said, this was put together a little bit quicker than original, but getting into the whites, and then they talk about some of the other marks they're using in things is the STL mark, which is what's showing up on the pants. I mean, they've incorporated all these kind of things in here. The river music, I think, is really cool. They have tweaked the word marks as well. Especially the one St. Louis Blues with the L is really long. I like how they did that, and more of the musical note and just what they call their illustrative word mark. They actually do give the primary colors and even the color codes. So if you wanted to have those colors made, you could take those to a paint store and have them made, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But they list, you can go, and then it gets into merchandise and things like that. I will say as a side note to that, because I wanted to go see what merch dropped out there. And they had some really cool hats. They did shirts. Some are in black. So we had both talked, or all three of us talked before we came on. It'd be neat to see if all teams did some kind of blackout one like that, or black and white design. I think could be cool, maybe down the road, but maybe it's just me, or I don't buy hats through team stores ever. I find them on sale online, things like that. But they released the hats today, almost $50 flipping dollars for a ball cap.
Yeah,
that's bad shit. I'm sorry. No, I like the Blues, and I really want to pick up something new style, but no, I'm not spending $50 for a hat when I can chunk down about another $350 and buy a jersey. When it's 25% of the cost to buy a jersey, if my math is right there, ish. I mean, come on. But I know it's across the board. It's not just St. Louis with that. But I just saw that. I'm like, that's insane. But I've seen people running out to get them, and the shirts were close to that too. But I cannot find... And again, some people may accuse me of being a Blues fanboy. I am a fan of the team. We're being, say, not critical, but we're critiquing it down. And overall, I think it's a good job. I think maybe too, and again, it's always hard to see in pictures. We said the same thing with the Fanatics ones before we got them in front of us. What it looks like in person is always different than pictures. I mean, just things pop more. So I think once we get one in front of us, I know I won't be able to make it this weekend, but I know they're doing some kind of season ticket holder event Friday night for the draft, and they're going to have one there, hopefully one all lettered up, so you can see that single. So if anybody goes, that listens to the show, goes to that event on Friday, get some pictures and send me what you think of it. But overall, I think they did an excellent job.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I said earlier in a post, I said it's a home run, and it is a home run. I don't think it's a 550-foot monster home run that, cleared the Green Monster and, anything else. I give it if I was giving it a score, out of 10, I give it probably an 8.5. Again, the numbers are something that I'm going to have to see in person to decide. I want to see the color of the home jersey versus last year's Fanatics Heritage jersey to see if they tweaked the color at all. To me, that's going to be an interesting thing to see if they just kind of recycled that jersey color or if they did something maybe a little different with it. And on the home jersey, I would have liked to have seen the striping pattern that we see on the shoulders on the road jersey. I think that really would have just killed it. But again, right now they're really looking to simplify things, so I understand why they didn't. Um, you know, they're overall a great vintage look and a great like throwback to a classic look for the Blues. You know, it's going to be, I give it an 8.5, you know, I give it an 8.5.
Yeah. I'll probably go with the 9 just because I like some of the other tweaks that they did. And it may go up once I get one physically in front of me. It's just pictures. Well, they tell a lot of stories. You can look at some of the detailing. I've really got to see it. So once we get into the season and actually get in front of these and see them on the ice with the numbering and lettering, it'll be that score could change.
Yeah.
I don't feel that it will go down, but it has the possibility of going up.
The thing that I'd like to see them do is add those new, you know, design elements that they put, you know, the STL and the trumpet one and some of the other stuff that you showed earlier. I'd like to see that get incorporated somehow into a few things, whether or not it's onto a third jersey in a year or two, whether or not it's, you know, it looks great on a lot of the apparel stuff that they put out there. So, I mean, I think that we're on a great trajectory. Thank God we're not in a place where they released them and we're like, oh God, what did you do?
Right.
You know, to all the people who thought that I think I made a post the other day and I said that one of my favorite jerseys is the red reverse retro. And people were all spazzing thinking I was saying that there was going to be red in the jerseys. I never assumed that would be the case. And I'm glad that they didn't make them red. But,
right.
that still will always be one of my favorite jerseys as a one and done. So excited to see what all this stuff looks like on the ice.
For sure. Paul, where would you rank this?
It's really tough for me to give it a number or a letter grade on it. To me, it's about the same as the old jerseys. It's, you know, some minor changes. They look nice, but the old jerseys look nice too.
Yeah.
So I don't.
I could see that as an outsider that way, you know, because it's not like it's a wholesale change. It's not like we changed the, you know, like I harp into what the Ducks have done a couple times where they've had these like sweeping changes on it, and some other teams that are, you know, the Blues have always stayed very traditional, and they did it again.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, when they come to San Jose and you know, the people who don't follow jerseys closely and stuff, they may not even realize it's a different jersey from last year.
Yeah.
Because, you know, unless you have the two in front of you, you know, and most people aren't geeks and remember like the type of numbering and lettering.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, sorry, people listening to this show might be, but and I mean that as a compliment. So
yeah, the outside or the casual fan, you're right, may not notice that if they don't follow the team or see the news, they may not notice any of that.
Yeah. But it's a sharp looking jersey. They didn't screw up anything, which, you know, and I agree with Wade's point 100%. It's not like when the Ducks came out with new jerseys a couple times, and it's like, wow, you either loved them or hated them, but it was a massive change.
For sure.
These are not, and they do look good.
Well, as a good way to drop a show quick to cover, again, deep dive stuff that Wade and I were able to do today, and wanted to make sure Paul was on to get the outsider opinion, which is always helpful, because otherwise it's two people that are always going to score things higher, I think, for the Blues in that, and just look at it. Boston's new jersey and stuff drops tomorrow. We will actually cover that on Thursday. The Red Wings 100th thing has been... They haven't officially released that yet, have they? I know it was leaked out. Was it one of the card companies leaked that one out the other day?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it came from, but I've seen it everywhere. So
I thought I'd seen it was from one of the card companies.
It was Upper Deck. Upper Deck released it on a product. It showed up, and that's what started that.
Whoopsie. You'd think there'd have been a hold on that, but again, so I'll double check between now and Thursday and see if there's an actual release date for that. But we'll cover Boston's. We'll talk about Detroit's and what we've seen of that, and Boston fan in a completely unrelated group to hockey actually sent it to me. Asked if I was excited about the Blues, and actually sent me the link to Boston's teaser video, and it shows it at the Fanatics factory being built. Jersey looks very, I would say, old school, but with nice Boston B. So it'll be interesting to break down that a little bit and see. Any final thoughts from you, Paul, before we get out of here?
No, I'm probably gonna have to miss Thursday, but I'm looking forward to the draft on Friday. Good friend Terry will be coming into town. He's a loyal listener to the show, and many of our friends know him from the fantasy hockey world. And then it'll just be great seeing, Mitch, Logan, and everyone else at the draft. In the summer we don't see everyone nearly as much when, you feel like you see them 3 times a week during the regular season. Oh, probably more with the Barracuda schedule too. So it'd be nice
Now,
catching up with everyone.
is what you're going to at with the Sharks, or is it at where the actual draft is taking place?
I decided not to go to LA for the actual draft,
Okay.
partly because it's a decentralized draft, and it sounds like each teams would have representatives there, but it didn't sound like it was going to be like what they did in Vegas last year.
Okay.
So the Sharks are hosting a draft party, starts at 3. The game worn stand will probably have new stuff, so people will probably start lining up. Who knows when? Or
They started lining up about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, it's for people don't want their stuff that badly.
It is the Sharks.
Yeah. So, but no, it should be a lot of fun. The draft, as you know, starts at 5, and the Sharks have 2 first-round picks. So, number 2 and I believe number 30. So that will keep people drinking for a while. Season ticket holders get access to the lounge level, which, according to the emails, and for at least 2 years ago when I went to this, it includes free food and free drinks.
Wow!
And whiskey.
You have to give us the full report next Thursday. Let us know how it went, kind of how you felt that kind of draft style went.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, most definitely should be a lot of fun. What I do find interesting is haven't seen any teams ever do anything on day 2, for the rapid fire next 6 rounds. And, I thought in Vegas, that was a blast, watching that, live. But,
and maybe they just feel that the fans of the individual team fans wouldn't be interested enough. And then you've got to staff the arena for 2 days to do all that stuff.
Yeah, but you could do a smaller event, like in the case of the Sharks at Stanley's, or one of the sports.
The Blues
bars.
would have some bars they could pull that off in too.
Yeah, it would be fun, but and that's the one thing one of the reasons why I regret not going to LA. Day 2 could be really interesting, doing it live and fun. So
just throw a party at your place.
Oh, that's probably what it's going to end up being. Now we have the sports bar here, so it's.
There you go. Wade, any final thoughts?
No, I'm glad we did the show tonight. It was fun. Like I said, I'm excited to see. I'm gonna probably go down Thursday and maybe grab some merch and see what else is floating around. Maybe they'll have one of the jerseys out somewhere, in a case. I think they did that last time they did it. Like you said, it's gonna be at the draft, so maybe it'll be down there a little early. It was fun. Congratulations to the Blues on something new, and congratulations to Blues fans because, man, it's been a while. So
it sure has.
I have already talked to a couple people because people are like, "Oh, when are you getting your jersey?" And I said probably December or January when they do their first auction. And I'm already counting my concerns for what that's going to cost.
Right. Yep. New style. Got to get it.
New style, first auction. People, but it's actually nerve-wracking to think what that's going to look like.
We've got plenty of time to stress and think about that. But thank you guys for joining me kind of last minute on this. And again, like, subscribe, follow, share this with your friends, all that kind of stuff. The special edition, hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll be back again for the normal show on Thursday night. We'll see you then.